Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Future Innovation Week / CES 2021. This is Tom's Hardware. I'm Andrew Friedman, and I'm here today with our deputy editor, Paul Alcorn. And from Intel, we have Chris Walker, who's here to talk us through all of the announcements that the company made today. So, hi, Chris. Thanks for coming to join us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So, Chris, do you want to give us a little bit of an overview of what what Intel announced at CES today?
Right. Yeah. So, thanks. And off the backdrop of such a wild and disruptive and for many painful 2021, what we found is more and more the needs and the role the PC is playing and what we're all doing. And what we've done today at this virtual CES is talk about an extension of our product line that was really four major products or groupings that we think are really meeting and continue to rise to the demands of what people are looking for across desktop and notebook. One of the first that we did is we said in our Tiger Lake or 11th Gen Core platform and Evo platform, we've continued to show and work with our partners to expand that design in that footprint with more and more systems that I think you're going to see from a lot of our partners coming into market. Over 120 11th Gen Core based notebooks in market already, 50 of those being our Evo platform. So one of the things we wanted to do is with that Evo platform, we've extended it. First announcement that we did is that Evo platform, which is responsiveness, battery life with wired and wireless connectivity, including Thunderbolt, and a measured experience. All that is now, we started in Windows, is now brought to Chrome. So you will see Evo-based Chromebooks, the first of which I believe was announced from Acer here, coming to market. And that includes all of the best in connectivity, wired and wireless, Thunderbolt for the first time on Chrome, and the measured mics, conferencing, things that we've done. The next is, we saw like such, work from home, commercial customers really trying to meet the needs of what users need in terms of performance, thin all day battery life designs, exact things that we delivered on the consumer side with 11th Gen Core. We're now bringing that to commercial with our vPro platform. So we brought the 11th Gen Core mobile platform into enterprise with vPro, and we've added specific things to that's unique for vPro and the enterprise user. A big part of that is what we feel is the most comprehensive hardware-based security. So we've added hardware-based protections for things like memory attacks. We've used our CPU, GPU, AI accelerators to apply machine learning to better protect from malware attacks like cryptocurrency hijacking or ransomware attacks. And we're able to show on a hardware basis how through the whole stack we can better protect your system. So these are the types of things that an IT manager really wants and needs to protect their enterprise. But we've married that and coupled it with all the power, performance, including Evo certification for many of these commercial laptops into one where people are really going to love their laptop because that's what you've got on your couch, in your bedroom, wherever you are. But at the same time, it's giving that complete solution. And then we actually had a breadth of announcements for gaming. Gaming's been for many of us, the way we're connecting with friends, both across town or across the world. Gameplay we've seen is up, 60% year on year. So we introduced, two new products. The first is our 11th Gen Core for desktop. I think you guys just did a review or write up on a Rocket Lake, where we're talking about new levels of CPU performance, big, 19% instruction per clock gains, high frequency rates specifically targeted for gaming. And then lastly, and this is a lot, I know we'll get to questions, with mobile, our H series, we saw like a lot of people wanting to be even thinner and lighter with their mobile gaming rig. And so we came out with a special edition 35-watt H series processor, specifically targeted for those super thin, like 16 to 17 millimeter thin type of gaming systems, using the latest in GPUs, which I think you're going to hear about just here in later this month. Pair those together so you can have ultra thin and light gaming experience that's insanely fast. Way over 70 frames per second in 1080p gaming, supporting 4K gaming on these ultra sleek systems, and then having very fast PCIe Gen 4 direct attached CPU storage. Then we're going to expand our H series with 11th gen later this quarter with our 45-watt systems, kind of covering all of mobile enthusiasts, and that's going to be a really exciting platform to bring high frequencies to multi-core, over 5 gigahertz across multiple cores, but especially for system builders and people looking to kind of have that true desktop platform experience. We're going to bring 20 PCIe 4 lanes off the CPU, so now you don't have to choose between CPU or GPU on the CPU attachment. So high bandwidth for storage and the latest GPUs right off the mobile CPU. So pretty big excitement overall, and I think then we give a few sneak peeks too that we can get into in a minute.
Great. So, by the way, for anyone who's watching, if you have questions or comments that you want to see on the screen, just drop them in, and if we get to them, we will highlight them right here. But first, we're gonna talk to Chris about the announcement that we made. Let's actually start with vPro, since I wrote about that earlier today. And what I wanted to ask about vPro is, like, this is, like you said, a really interesting time to be working from home, or like to be working, right? Like to be a working white collar professional, because the PC market is like at its highest in a very long time. Suddenly everyone who's working, who is getting an education, needs a device, whereas previously they might have been able to share one. I'm curious, what is different about sort of selling vPro, about telling people the benefits of vPro when the workforce is spread out so much? Where previously, when you might have your 10th gen vPro or going back, it would very much be, okay, we're going to sell to this one customer who's going to give it to 150 computers in the office. Where now these people are all over the planet. How does that change how you address vPro?
I think the first is making sure that the laptop in particular is the system that the end user wants. And so from that standpoint, you'll see the 11th gen systems, thinner, sleeker, thinner, lighter, narrower bezels from what the OEM partners do. But we felt it was important, if you look at the technologies we brought together, 11th gen core, it's what you'd expect. Productivity, faster and faster productivity for your office tasks. But more and more, you're doing those tasks concurrently with conferencing. And so it was really important that performance is applied. This is why we talk about performance in the real world, is you see those kinds of gains in office productivity, but it's the same time while you're conferencing, while you're doing content media creation, whether it's video or photo, right? Everybody is a creator, and I think in the commercial and education environment. So a lot of the gains of what we've done across CPU, graphics, and AI are related to that. The other thing that the 11th gen core brings to the vPro platform is a lot of richer, easier conferencing solutions. Support for higher quality cameras and microphones at very low power. We have dedicated Gaussian AI engines to help do background noise abstraction at very low power. So that's an overall seamless experience. And then if you're like me or many people, like, your docking experience at home is really important. And so things like Thunderbolt 4, you can drive, if you're a creator, you're doing financial services, 2 4K monitors. You can use that for wired Ethernet connectivity. And then with Wi-Fi 6, you're getting gig plus speeds on the notebook. And so all that kind of comes together for the end-to-end solution. Now, what vPro adds on top of that is, if you're an IT manager, it's really important is now everybody's scattered around. So how do you help service that system? So a big part of keeping you secure is, hey, latest patch updates, can I reach you? Can I help you get back up? And a lot of what vPro does in the manageability is that remote manageability. So if you're out of band, if something happens, your IT can still get to your system remotely, help bring you back up. And then, people are doing work and life off the same system. So there's, as an enterprise, you want to protect your data, your employees from, malware, from ransomware, from crypto jacking that robs this utilization. So what we've done specifically now on these new vPro platforms, put hardware-based securities in for those most modern and disruptive attacks. And so that kind of keeps everybody happy.
Let's go real quick, since we have this up, talk very quickly about some of the machines that have it. Those include the Dell Latitude 9420 and its eShutter. Also saw HP redid its Elite Dragonfly Gen 2, as well as the Elite Dragonfly Max, the larger screen. And I don't have it up here, but the ThinkPad X1 Titanium, which is the thinnest 2-in-1 we've seen so far. So it's just a small sampling of the new vPro ones. Are there any other vPro devices that you wanted to highlight?
You'll see from every major vendor, new vPro systems coming out. One interesting thing on the Dell systems too is the use of our visual sensing technology, and what that does is give you gives a machine context awareness to help you save battery life, help you save power, where it can sense presence and detection using our Cloverfall technology to be able to help manage the system better, right? Presence, security, background lighting, things like that are things that, as we think of the platform view, as we think about the user, are added features we're starting to be able to bring in with our partners to really make it a better end-to-end experience.
All right, let us move on to Paul. What do you want to talk about next?
Yeah, and maybe one more thing, Andrew. Paul.
Oh, sure.
The consumer world and the commercial world don't operate in silos or parallel universes. All the things we talked about last year in our Evo platform, the instant resume, the all day in the real world battery life, responsiveness, whether you're plugged in or on battery, we've brought that together with vPro. So you have Evo platforms that also bring in the manageability and security of vPro all together.
All right, Paul, there was a lot today. What do you think we should talk about next?
We could talk a little bit about Rocket Lake, of course.
Okay, let's talk Rocket Lake.
Let's talk Rocket Lake. So one of the interesting things that came out of the Tiger Lake H35 announcement, which is not Rocket Lake, was that Intel is enabling support for the resizable bar feature with NVIDIA. Now, this is all relatively new to the industry, and NVIDIA just within the last month or two has announced that they were working to enable support for that with next-gen GPUs. If Intel is already on the ball with the H35 processors that are in the market, or will be very soon, can we expect that type of functionality to come to your desktop chips like Rocket Lake?
I think you can. One of the things we've done is we're actually working with NVIDIA to enable it. Right? It doesn't happen. Two sides have to come together, and so we're not doing all the speeds and feeds or specs on Rocket Lake just yet. But you can expect that. That is a feature that has advantages not only for notebooks but also desktops, and so we'll be enabling that going forward.
Excellent. And then with Rocket Lake, Intel stepped back to 8 cores because, of course, the 14 nanometer process simply can't doesn't have enough transistors to have the 10 cores that we see with the current line of processors. How do you feel that that's going to impact performance? Do you think that that's going to disadvantage you in like multi-threaded workloads? I mean, I know that from the clock speeds and from the IPC improvement, we're probably looking at a pretty substantial uplift in single core performance, but the lack of cores do you think that'll be a disadvantage in multi-threaded type of work?
Yeah, I think, Paul, the way we thought about the Rocket Lake product and architecture is how do I, we re-architected and were able to take our Ice Lake based core together with the XE graphics and create it together in what we call the Cypress Cove core, blend those IPs together. What was really important is that we got the instruction per clock gain up to 19% IPC gains on this new core, and then applying what we've been able to do on the 14 nanometer process, run it at much higher speeds, right, at 5.3 gigahertz. And so we think that that combination, remember, we're adding VNNI instruction sets. We're adding, with the XE graphics, you can use that with DP4A for other acceleration and bringing the media in from the XE graphics. We think that together, that's a potent combination for focus on frame rates for gameplay. When you want to game and stream, you can now use QuickSync video, and you can use the XE graphics architecture to offload or not have to put that on your discrete GPU. So for us, we think that's going to be a very competitive product for gaming and creators in the way that people typically are working. We found that was a more valuable combination than just packing in more cores.
Okay, and you guys have increased the clock speeds quite a bit. Do you foresee any challenges associated with that and thermal output or things like that?
I think we over user feedback and over the years, especially going to solder TIM for overclocking capabilities. Looking at engineering up with our board partners in the OEM's power delivery. We think that it's going to be a robust platform. The other thing that I think we talked about also is the 20 PCIe Gen 4 lanes. So adding that level of I/O bandwidth and expandability on the system, we think is how people want to build systems too, and offering that level of capability at the overall system level. So from that standpoint, we think that 11th gen desktop S series product really comes together nicely for a very competitive system for gaming and for most of what people are doing.
So for workloads that require more than 8 cores, how are you guys going to position that? Do you think you're still going to recommend maybe your high-end desktop?
Yeah, so 8 cores, 16 threads. If you need more than that, we do have our dedicated Xeon-based workstation products. Keeping in mind that in many cases, on the high-end desktop, on the S series that we talked about with this new 11th gen Rocket Lake based system, a lot of it is about, okay, now in the workloads that you're doing, how much, we're applying VNNI, and they've worked with, people like Adobe for their Sensei AI, that comes out in the software more than you see in a just a benchmark that pounds threads.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking back to the Ice Lake and Comet Lake, correct me if I'm wrong, laptop chips, where we kind of had a split families where one group was recommended for this, the other chips were recommended for this in the laptop space. And I was kind of curious if we could see a similar split approach on the desktop, to where maybe you guys would say, hey, if you need threaded horsepower, go with the 10-core Comet. And if you're looking for the utmost in single-threaded performance, go for the Rocket Lake.
We think that for the kind of, content creation and things where you might want to be more threaded, there's actually a great advantage to using the DL boost, that's VNNI instruction sets and things like that you can get on the 11th gen Rocket Lake. So we don't view it as a split family. What we do in our desktop product line is you have a scalable S series product line, and then we have our very high end workstation caliber platforms as well. So think of it more along that than what we did in notebook, given the different timing that we introduced on 10th gen for notebook.
All right, we have a couple questions in, so let's take a couple questions while we're talking about Rocket Lake. I'm going to start with one from our own Jared Walton, who asked, can you confirm how many EUs are available on Rocket Lake? Is it 32 or 128? Are you able to tell us that, or is that too?
Not able to tell you that, but I can tell you the EU is sized, expecting that desktop uses more discrete graphics. That said, all the media capability is in the XE architecture we brought in. So we focused on media more than EU count, knowing that for the most part, these would be paired with discrete graphics.
All right, and then we got another one. This one is from Official Zinnock, who asks, why isn't Rocket Lake built on the 10 nanometer SuperFin node like Tiger Lake? Wouldn't that significantly uplift performance alongside the new Willow Cove architecture?
Our optimization point when we were building the chip was to utilize two new IPs, the Willow Cove CPU architecture and the XE graphics architecture, but also be able to run it at the higher frequencies across more cores and allow the additional scalability that we thought that our 14 nanometer process gave us. That was a design choice coming in to do Rocket Lake. At the same time, we also did give a sneak peek today and talk about in the second half of this year, we'll bring 10 nanometer in an enhanced version of our SuperFin technology to both mobile and desktop with a product we've codenamed Alder Lake. So SuperFin technology will come later this year for desktop for us.
Great. All right. Are we all Rocket Laked out? Do we want to move to?
That's good for Rocket Lake. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about H35, shall we? So today you guys announced the H35 Enthusiast Gameplay on the Go 35-watt chips, and it's interesting to see that these were announced sort of separately between the 45-watt chips announced later this year. What's the reasoning for them being separated?
Some of it's timing. So the H35 chip is able to leverage the existing 4-core single package solution, and so paired with the latest GPUs that you'll hear about here very, very soon, we were able to target what people felt was, what we heard from our customers, and I think we talked about, we're 40 designs on this H35 chip. A really good response rate of driving to that ultra thin and light category. So, screen size is 14 to 15 inch, under 18 millimeters Z height. That was a balance that we could do sooner, and then we'll be in production, very soon on our H45 chips, and that's where we talked about that capability as well. So that's just a timing of us bringing out H35, very focused for an ultralight, ultra portable gaming, and then H45 or our 8-core Tiger Lake based part, which will scale enthusiast gaming through mobile workstation. So it covers a much broader portfolio of enthusiast platforms.
Go ahead, Paul.
One thing that probably caught me a little bit by surprise, but probably shouldn't have, because the chips have already been on the market for a few months, but I just don't think it was communicated very well, at least not to the broader press, is the Core i7 10870H and the Core i5 10500H. Those are Comet-like chips, I believe.
Yep.
Those you guys recently introduced those new chips, and they were mentioned frequently in some of the briefings that we attended. Can you kind of give us some of the rationale behind those chips, why they're coming maybe a little bit late in the cycle now that you have 10 nanometer on the market, and also how they stack up relative to other chips within that same family?
I think on those specific chips, we were able to, as any product matures, you see additional capability you can get out of it, and so that was our opportunity to bring that to market with some of the latest GPUs. And so typically in our product line, you'll see some overlap, and so that was essentially the reasoning how we came out with both new 10th gen and the new 11th gen part simultaneously. And you'll see people be able to upgrade, system OEMs upgrade existing designs with both CPU and the latest in GPU performance here over the course of Q1 with availability basically now. And then we said our H45 chips would be coming later in the first half of this year from a system availability. So it's really a slicing the timing of the market as people wanted to upgrade their systems, both CPU and GPU.
Okay, and one thing that maybe slid by me a little bit, and it's kind of maybe a Captain Obvious question. With the ultra portables, can we expect Evo platforms to come as well for the new class of ultra portables? I don't think that.
Yeah, right now when we look at the ultra portal, because of the focus on gaming and frame rates, we think a lot of that has really good benefits for the end user, but might not be able to meet all the things of all-day battery life like you see in the Evo promise. So that's something we'll look at going forward. But so right now we see kind of the Evo platform on the combination of responsiveness, the weight and thickness dynamics, and certainly the battery life as kind of separate from what we've seen in ultra portable gaming in terms of what the systems can reach, so far.
Okay, another tidbit that I noticed in the marketing materials is you guys top 1080p gaming at 70 plus FPS. Does that apply to all of the new ultra portable laptops? Is that kind of a bar that they have to meet, or is that more of a general guideline expectation?
Yeah, so I think that good question, Paul. And some of this is you'll hear more once the other part of the equation that performance data on new discrete GPUs come out. But it's our expectation the kind of systems that people wanted were thinner, more portable, but still had just really kick butt performance. I mean, and I think it takes stretch on. We're talking about 4K gaming on something that's the one I held up in the in our press conference. It's 16.6 millimeters thin, right, in a 15-inch type system that's doing really good 4K gaming. Combination a lot of that GPU, but it's also enabled by the CPU. What we're doing on PCIe Gen 4. So those are things that you'll see as the systems come to market and they're our partner to embargoes lift. You'll be able to see more of the actual performance numbers on those.
I was pretty impressed with the demo. I believe it was the 45-watt 8-core that's coming. You guys were doing 8K gaming on that, correct?
Yeah. So I mean, what we're showing on will come next in the 11th gen family, an 8-core Tiger Lake based mobile system that will reach enthusiasts all the way through muscle books, mobile workstation, and that's that is true desktop caliber gaming. We'll be running multiple cores at over 5 gigahertz, 20 lanes of PCIe Gen 4 CPU attached bandwidth. So for fast, fast storage access with the latest, in GPUs carrying up through the highest end of the line. So those are going to be really impressive systems that we'll be in production in that end of this quarter.
Sounds exciting.
I have a question about the naming scheme for the Tiger Lake H series coming up, which is that we've gotten used to as Ice Lake turned into Tiger Lake, this new naming convention that has your graphics at the end and then your 3 or 5 or 7. And I guess I assumed, maybe naively, that was going to be the case going forward for 10 nanometer chips. But clearly with the H series, that's not the case because they still have the 1137 or the 11370H, the 11375H. So why is that line there? Whereas like the U and the Y are kind of gone, but the H remains.
You've got within the 11th gen where we had different configurations on the integrated Xe graphics, right? So Intel UHD graphics all the way through Iris. We use the G5, G7 to indicate the level of EUs and graphics capability. On our nomenclature, sometimes we'll continue to use H series to show where there's also a difference in I/O capability. Because as we bring out the latest 8-core 45-watt parts, they will have a difference in I/O capability.
All right, and one other just pure naming question is, so the Core i7, the top end is the Core i7 1137.5H Special Edition. And why Special Edition? Is that sort of just like, that's the one, by the way, that hits 5.0,
Yeah.
5 gigahertz on the single core turbo. So is that just sort of like a celebration of 5 gigahertz, or what's the reason for it?
We thought in that kind of form factor notebook, it was a pretty darn good, it was a pretty amazing thing to hit 5 gigahertz in that kind of capability. So that's why we did a special edition on that.
And that's only with Turbo Boost Max 3.0, correct?
Right.
So it would have to detect the workload and send it to the right core, right? But that's pretty proven on the desktop. I mean, that's actually really mature.
Yeah, I think that's one thing, as we've, this is why we talk about not just, the CPU, but all the things that we do across it. We've got a lot of learnings in Turbo and the triggers and how to achieve that. We applied a lot of both application, but also what's going on in the machine for machine learning to be able to maximize that Turbo capability, Turbo residency.
Nice.
I'm going to bring up, because we've gotten just a couple questions in between. They're not all necessarily regarding H35, but want to get them up here because people have dropped them in. So we have one here from Todd Harris, who says, it sounds like Rocket Lake will be desktop only. Is that correct? So 8-core mobile will be Tiger Lake, 8-core desktop will be Rocket Lake?
So Rocket Lake is desktop only. And what we gave a introduction or announcement to today is on mobile, as we go, our next 11th gen 45 watt will be Tiger Lake based. Correct.
We often see those mobile processors also filter out to small form factor.
You'll see that in things like desktop all-in-one small form factors as well.
Yeah. So we can expect that as well.
Correct.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, and that's what's really interesting about what we've been able to do in mobile as well, is you can bring some of that really high bandwidth I/O like we do on the desktop, bring it to mobile, and then both desktop and mobile we're continuing to expand out Thunderbolt attach rate, Wi-Fi. I think a big thing that we talked about both on the commercial platforms and also on these new gaming platforms is Wi-Fi 6E. And what's important with that when paired with newer routers is that's clean spectrum. That's first time in a decade you've had new bandwidth for Wi-Fi. So with Intel Wi-Fi 6, you're doing gig plus speeds wirelessly. And then with 6E, bring in a new spectrum. So your ability, and especially with our killer wireless, you're able to profile just for your workloads, just for your gaming, just for your media or video stream. So these are things that, one, gives you more control, but two, if you're like most people where, maybe a couple people in the house are doing work calls, someone's gaming, someone's doing an online class, that bandwidth management and having that capability in your house with a lot of overlapping activity, super important for your experience.
Of course, it's a bit of future proofing too, because it'll probably be a bit as 6E routers proliferate. Do we have?
If you would have told me 5 years ago the wireless would be faster than wired, I would have been a little surprised. It is pretty surprising. I mean, even on desktop, I'm considering buying a Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and we profile this in lab, and it's consistent speeds. I mean, it's very impressive, and it makes a difference, right? It makes a difference in your everyday. Now, some of those capabilities that we talked about. Just one announcement I forgot, just to tie things back. We talked about, what you can do for cameras for better conferencing, Wi-Fi 6. A lot of these capabilities we've also brought together into what we call our Pentium and Celeron, our entry education platform. So we actually announced another class of products, formerly codenamed Jasper Lake, but we're bringing a lot of these IPs and technologies for education, for more entry consumer into new even Pentium and Celeron based products. And so that's another big milestone that we've done, is introduce a new line, new IPs with Tremont cores into the most accessible parts of the roadmap. And so I'm really proud of the work Intel's done on those capabilities, and then partnering with many education initiatives to bring technology to kids in schools and disadvantaged youth, around the country, in fact, around the world. And that's been something we've been doing for over a decade. Over $1 billion invested in education by Intel. So I'm really happy to see that those technologies we're bringing throughout our portfolio.
Okay. Do we have time to talk the Alder Lake tease a little bit?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, so tease the very end, Alder Lake running on the desktop, the first x86 hybrid architecture.
Well, we've proven out. We've done a slice of hybrid architecture with our Lakefield product, targeting very ultra small form factor, the X1 fold as an example. But at scale, yeah, we're excited about it at the end of this year. We don't stop innovating. We don't, we're definitely can't rest. So, two new architectures brought together in a hybrid architecture on a revised, updated version of our SuperFin technology. So we're making additional enhancements to transistor technology. And so in the second half of this year, you'll see us bring in a product code named Alder Lake for best desktop and mobile. So excited about all of 2021, what we've announced today across commercial, education, consumer gaming, and then the look forward into brand new, very big scalable architecture for us, using two new core architectures in a novel way. That's going to be super exciting for us and for the industry as we come into the end of 21.
So is it safe to call those 12th, or is it safe to call those 12th gen, or is it too early to get into that sort of?
I've learned is sometimes it's never safe in marketing, right? So we'll do the naming as we get closer.
And I guess, yeah, I mean, let's see, we do have a couple more before we wrap up. We do have a couple more questions that have popped through. So and we'll see how many of them you can answer thus far, since Alder Lake has been teased. We have Todd again, who's asking, do the high performance calls in Alder Lake support hyperthreading, or will there be one thread per core only?
Oh, so I think we'll disclose Alder Lake as we get a little deeper into the year.
Oh, sorry, Todd.
Yeah.
And a couple others that I think might be reaches on what you can say, but people are asking, so let's check anyway. Which are Xenox Back. He says, or they say, I shouldn't assume, that I'm excited for both Rocket Lake and Alder Lake. It's a big leap for Intel indeed. I am curious if you could say anything about your upcoming dedicated Xe gaming GPUs for desktops. Not exactly in the CES launch, but
yeah, not the DG2 or the next what we're going to do after we did our Iris Max. We're going to be detailing those in a little bit. So you'll have to hang tight, and hopefully you guys can have me back on and we can talk discrete graphics.
I do believe recently you guys said that they had done power on DG2. That's about where they're at right now. So
we're moving through the labs. Yeah. So, but yeah, we'll come back and talk to you guys in a bit more detail on those later.
All right. I think. Oh, one person wants. We do have. Rurutu is asking, how do you pronounce Xe? So
we do this Xe, and it's done X. It's almost like exponential, so it's X to the E.
Okay, so there we go. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of. Did we miss anything? And I think
we captured. So again, we had pretty wide-ranging, commercial to education to gaming, which is you can't have more fun than hitting basically everything people are doing in computing and PC today. So really proud of and thankful to the whole Intel manufacturing engineering team. A lot of people in the fabs, a lot of people in the labs, all through COVID, through everything that help make these products possible. And so for us, we're looking forward to what we can deliver in 2021. Because if anything, the PC's essential nature, the reestablish of the relationship and what everybody's doing with their PC, I don't think is going away anytime soon. So it's our job. We strive to keep making it better and better for everyone.
Excellent.
All right. That's Chris Walker, the Corporate Vice President and GM of Mobile Client Platforms. Thank you so much for taking your time out of the busy CES.
Thanks for having us on. Have a great
Right. And for everybody else who's watching, we're going to be having more Tom's Hardware Live throughout CES on Tuesday and Wednesday. So be sure to keep a check. You can check on Tom's Hardware for a bit more of a schedule. And of course, be on YouTube and Facebook. If you want all of the little updates, then you can simply like and subscribe, as we like to say, and you'll get all the latest as we go throughout the week. So we want to thank Chris again and thank all of you for watching. And we'll see you tomorrow and Wednesday for more Tom's Hardware Live. Bye, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Paul.